Call to order the City Commission meeting of Tuesday, July 10th, 2018. Let the record show we're missing one commissioner, Mrs. Trustham. First item up is the order of business. Mrs. Carlson, are there any changes to the order of business?
Thank you, President Decker. Yes, there is a couple changes. Under Administration Finance, letter A, 3A, we will have items 3 and 4, which will be coming from item 7, planning. We're just moving those two up underneath A as 3 and 4. Also, under E of administration, under 3E, we're adding 2 more items. Number 3 is executive budget workshop update, and number 4 is the commission group photo. And that would be all.
Okay, so we're moving A and B off of 7 up to A to make it their 3 and 4.
Correct.
Okay. And then the exec budget and our commission photo. So, any questions for Mrs. Carlson on the changes?
Mr. President?
Yeah.
If there, I believe there was one other item, if the board wishes, under 11, if you wish to receive an update on the Koenig matter, that would be added as an additional item number 3 under 11.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. So we'll add an update under our executive session.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Not, I'd look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as changed.
I have a motion to approve the agenda as changed. With a second. Any further discussion or questions for staff? Not, all in favor of the order of business, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The order of business is approved. Consent agenda is the next item up. Are there any items on the consent agenda that commissioners wish to discuss? If not, then I'd look for a motion. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
With a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda is approved. We have a 5:30 and a 5:45. Am I correct for timetable? Start that a little bit later than normal. So, okay. So we have 5:30 and a 5:45. So we'll move right into administration and finance. First thing, we have an MOU for a mural. City Attorney Murtha, you'll be handling that?
I will. Mr. President, members of the commission, there are 2 MOUs under this item. Both of them interrelate one with the other. One is between the city and the Department of Transportation. The other is between the city and Western Wellness. And both of these MOUs relate to the underpass mural project. The one with the, notably the one with the DOT, it simply outlines the discretion and responsibilities of each party, given that this mural will be provided on an underpass and implicates, of course, traffic safety issues, and that ultimately the DOT has the ability to request that it be removed, request that it be maintained in a better condition, general oversight. The city will have the ultimate, well, as well as the DOT will have, you have to get final approval from the DOT with regards to the design. The bulk of the project is outlined in the MOU between the city and Western Wellness, which outlines the duties and responsibilities between these parties. The Western Wellness will act as the project director for the project. They will organize volunteers. They will provide insurance for the participation of these volunteers. The city's obligation includes providing a $10,000 lump sum payment to Western Wellness basically within the next 2 weeks, should the city approve this MOU. That will be paid, and then at that point, the matter will be coordinated amongst the project director and the downtown task force, which will bring back to you recommendations with regards to the design for the underpass. The city will have the final say over the design, subject again to the approval of the DOT. Those items interrelate. You'll notice one of the provisions in here, which is rather beneficial to the city, should you move forward on this, is under 2H, which indicates, in speaking with Chris Fair with regards to this matter, she indicated that the artist involved occasionally will provide maintenance or updates to the mural, little touches to keep it, touch-ups to keep it looking very nice for free. The artist is under no obligation to do so, but has done so in the past, and to reflect that benevolent assistance going forward, that is captured in Exhibit H, that subsequent to the mural being put up, it is the city's responsibility to provide ongoing maintenance, for example, removal of graffiti, that type of thing. But in the event that the minimal maintenance is needed and the artist consents, this may be provided free of charge. Any thing that is beyond minimal for which the artist is requesting reimbursement will be set forth in a separate agreement with the city. This term, in the term of the MOU with Western Wellness will conclude in November, technically, as it relates to the grant period and actually putting up the mural. However, the maintenance obligations of the city will continue beyond that time. That is a brief summary of these two agreements and their purpose. I believe Ms. Fair is in the audience, and so if you have any additional questions, I'm sure she would be able to answer them better than I, but I'd be happy to answer any that you have for me at this time.
Okay, any questions for City Attorney Murtha? Not. Planning Director Hadley, anything that you wish to add?
I think the only thing to add is that the design is going to be presented to the task force at the next meeting, the final design, and they'll review that, and then it'll be shared with this group at the commission meeting after that.
Any questions for Mr. Hadley? And then since Mrs. Fear is in the audience, any questions for her? Hearing none, I would look for, to start with, the DOT MOU.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
For the second. Any further discussion on the NDDOT MOU? Not, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Wallach?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. MOU with the NDDOT is approved. Next would be the Western Wellness Foundation MOU. Any questions or further discussion before I receive a motion?
I would move we approve Western Wellness Foundation MOU.
We have a motion to approve the MOU with Western Wellness.
Second.
In a second. Any further discussion? Not, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Wallach?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The MOU with Western Wellness is approved. We'll move on to Planning Director Hadley. You have a final plat for Diamond Acres.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is Diamond Acres, and this was actually approved by the Planning Commission late last year. The commission actually approved the DA. The plat was actually submitted for signature and went through the process of obtaining signatures here at City Hall, and we found out that it hadn't been formally acted upon, the final plat, prior to those signatures. So the plat is pending. Staff basically it would recommend approval as the Planning Commission did. There wasn't any objections on this when it went through planning or staff from that time till now. So it is kind of a cleanup measure from the standpoint of they have everything that they needed in place. We're now just waiting so we can do the recordation.
And this is Resolution 20-2018. Mrs. Murtha, is it 2018?
So, yes. Yes.
Okay. So Any questions for Mr. Hadley on the Diamond Acres final plat? If not, I'd look for a motion on Resolution 20-2018.
Move to approve resolution.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? We have a motion to approve. Not, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Wallop?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Resolution 20-2018 is approved. And we'll move on to planning, the item number 4, and that was special use permit, MBI explosive storage. Mrs. Murtha, are you handling that?
I am.
Okay.
Mr. President, members of the commission, this would be Resolution 21-2018 up for the City Commission's approval and relates to the request for a special use permit on behalf of MBI to store explosive materials on the area indicated in the permit. This was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and subject to the conditions that are noted 1 through 6, or excuse me, 1 through 8. If the commission would like, I can read those conditions. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, or would you like Mrs. Murtha to review the special use permit?
Mr. President, if I could, just wanted to mention, I had spoken with a representative of MBI today. He was planning on attending the meeting, and I told him his agenda item was well down the list, and he was planning on being here a little bit later. So if there were some questions that came up, he certainly was planning on being here to address them, but just around 5 o'clock. So I guess we can go through the conditions, and if there's questions, maybe we can table it.
Yeah. Do we have any questions on the special use permit? I've read through it. I don't have any, but.
Mr. President, if I could, the conditions, they were aware of the conditions, the applicant was.
Okay.
So I think the concerns would be from you, if you have any
Right.
questions or concerns on it.
This isn't a temporary location or anything. It's a final location, correct? They're building a building there specifically for it and so on.
I guess I didn't catch all
For
of
the
it.
storage of the materials? I mean, this isn't
Right,
temporary.
it's not a building, it's a structure that I can,
But it's not temporary. I mean,
No, it's not temporary.
They
Mr.
plan
Hadley?
on, they
No.
plan on using it for a long, long time. What kind of materials is that?
I'm not sure, Craig, you know what's in the barrels, the magic barrels?
As far as I know, it's just earthen material used as an embankment to, if there was an
The
explosion.
military does use these types of containment areas.
They call it hazardous materials. Is it explosive? Is the fire chief here?
It is explosives, and the fire department did review the application.
I think you have a picture of the HESCO barriers in there. So.
It should be in there too, sir.
I just, I'm okay with it. I just wonder why we approve hazardous and explosive materials within the city limits when we don't allow fireworks stand in the city limits.
I'm afraid I
Well,
can't.
I'm hoping these aren't being set off. Because I think they would, the neighbors would really be upset if these are set off. Just,
Existing explosive storage, I mean,
I think it's just storage. I think it's part of their fracking.
Wire line.
Yeah, the wire line.
I think if the fire chief signs off on it, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think they have, that's one of the conditions in here, so. Okay. Any other questions for staff? Not, I would look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? We have a motion to approve 21-2018. We'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. 21-2018 is approved. All right, we'll move into item B under administration and finance. And Mrs. Murtha, you'll be handling this?
I will. Mr. President, members of the commission, this is an application for a tobacco retailer license with regards to relating to a vape shop. However, as you'll note on the application, it indicates that no cigarettes, chewing tobacco, cigars, or smoking cessation product will be sold. They will be selling vaping and vaping equipment and art only. I don't know if the applicant is in the room currently. I will indicate that subsequent to receiving this application, the applicant appears qualified. City Hall did receive an informal report indicating that it had been observed that people were using vape products inside the shop obviously prior to receiving the license, but also you aren't supposed to be using vaping products inside a shop. It needs to be outside. This was reported by the individuals from the Southwest District Unit Health, who did say that they stopped in and spoke with the owners and explained the need to use product outside of the business due to the regulations with regards to that. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. There has not been any follow-up on that particular issue other than just bringing it to your attention today. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them at this time.
Any questions on the tobacco license?
My only question, is this application on our website for public reviewing? Because it's got a social security number on it.
It is public. And it shouldn't be.
We better
Redact.
that, or
Yep, none of us caught it.
so. That was the only question I had.
Okay. Well noted. Thank you.
Okay. There's no other comments or questions. I'd look for a motion on the tobacco license.
I'd make a motion to approve the license for whatever, Steam Brothers, or what was it?
Steam Junkie.
Steam Junkies Vapor LLC.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the tobacco license with a second. Any further discussion or questions? Now we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Walla? Chair votes aye. Tobacco license is approved. We'll move on to item C, Pioneer Building Roofing Bid, and we'll have Museum Director Furman.
Mr. President, Commissioners, recent heavy rains have demonstrated significant leaks in the roof of the city-owned Pioneer Machinery Building at the Dickinson Museum Center grounds. Complete shingle replacement is recommended. Staff solicited 3 bids, 2 of which were submitted, with Calm Construction being the low bid of $21,434.11, with an additional quote of $175 for replacement of a segment of missing fascia on that same building, for a total of $21,609.11. Staff recommends accepting the low bid with funding for these repairs to come from hospitality tax proceeds that support the general fund.
Thank you, Mr. Furman. Any questions?
Has it been adjusted by the insurance adjuster? Probably not even submitted.
No, sir.
I'm guessing if you
don't-
got damage up there, wind, hail, whatever, allowing that in.
It's a situation where, I hate to admit it, but I was the only person on staff who apparently did not know that that roof had problems. This has been historic for some time. When I went into the building after our first heavy rain and noticed all the water on the floor, I was just really appalled. I mean, the Stark County Historical Society had spent a lot of money on doing renovations in the inside of the building and what have you. Luckily, none of that was really impacted. But I said, I can't believe this leak. And everybody looked at me and, well, it's always leaked. And so I asked staff about that, and staff said, well, we thought that our custodian had told you. And our custodian, of course, had changed. And I sat and I thought about it, and then I realized I had never been through an extensive rain experience here last year due to the drought. And so I feel a little befuddled to actually have to bring this for you this way, as opposed to it really should have been part of the 2018 budget if I had known.
I'd recommend you contact North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund and submit a claim on it. More than likely, you got some wind damage up there that's allowing this moisture to get in there. I would
Okay.
recommend you do that.
I have the feeling, though, the need to fix it is immediate. Can we?
Well, I have no
approve it?
problem with fixing it, but you
They
should
can
make
get
the
some
make the claim
reimbursement.
immediate. They'll probably be out in a day or so after you call them.
Yes, sir.
Just so we don't damage any of the items inside the museum, so we need to get it fixed. Any other questions for Mr. Furman? None, I'd look for a motion on this bid.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve with a second. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Furman or staff? Now, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Bid is approved for construction.
Thank you very
And I
much.
would, yes, I would get a hold of the insurance company and make
Will
sure.
do. And Commissioner Steiner, thank you for that suggestion.
All right. Next item up is we have a liquor license revision for the Elks Lodge. Mrs. Murtha, you'll be handling this?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the commission, this is another application that had another error on it. The applicant incorrectly checked beer and wine concession license. Has been clarified with them. They are in fact only checking the box for the lodge or club license, which they have historically held. Another note about this, while it's not in here, what they're doing is requesting to expand their serving area onto their patio area, and they have provided a diagram to the city, which it's my understanding has been reviewed by police, that incorporates serving in that patio area. The other item that was included for your review was some information with regards to some of the board members indicated that there were prior convictions related to alcohol. It is within your discretion as a city commission to approve or deny applications for liquor licenses based upon your determination with regards to an individual's character or fitness for the license held. I can provide you with guidance or more information on what other boards have done and what standards are applicable if you deem the citations or the items noted with regards to these board members to be of a concern. So I won't go into that now unless you want that information and you question whether or not you want to move forward with this license.
Any questions for Mrs. Murtha?
So, my concern by looking at this here is, do we not have a limit as to what an individual is allowed to accumulate under the
Not with,
list?
sorry, Commissioner Steiner, not within your ordinance. Your ordinance actually gives you broad discretion. What I have seen in both case law and in other jurisdictions is that the totality of the circumstances is looked at. Generally, if there is a felony conviction, I'm actually not sure, based upon the information presented, whether one of these constitutes a felony alcohol-related offense. Or if there's a felony conviction that has been held by some jurisdictions to be sufficient to say, no, we will not renew that license. However, it's all within your discretion. You don't have that rule set forth in ordinance, so you can decide it is or it isn't. Sometimes cumulative misdemeanors, if they are reasonably related, and there results in a concern with regards to license activity. So alcohol-related offenses for an alcohol license is a very common connection that you could make. I would suggest, I don't know if any of the board members are present here today, but if they are not, if you are considering not moving forward with this license at this time, that the individuals be informed that this matter be tabled, and you set it over for the next meeting, and invite them in to have that conversation with them and express your concerns and give them an opportunity to speak to it. Not that it impairs your right at all to deny the license. You certainly have that ability to deny the license today. I would just recommend having that discussion with them. So it's really up to you. I'm not sure of your history and how you've looked at these in the past. The other thing to be noted is that there are multiple board members for the Elks. The individuals that are listed represents a less number than the full amount of the board members. So I have also seen it where it is suggested that it is a concern with regards to particular board members. However, for board members where there is no concern, maybe they want to think about their board membership. They want the license.
How many members do they have?
How many
on the
members?
board?
They have 8.
Eight.
The situation usually is the exalted ruler always goes on the liquor license when he takes over that year. That would be Cliff in this situation. And then it's usually the exalted ruler and the manager. I don't know why there are 2 other board members on there. I don't remember in the past when I was on there that we had anybody but the exalted ruler and the manager. But
I don't have a problem with the 205 or the 2005, 2004, 2016.
Miss Schweiger is the manager.
Yeah. And
I guess my only concern is, and this is just for future, I would like, I guess, to me, is that the whole license be filled out, not just, this here. If you go scroll down.
Okay. The situation is
Yeah.
when you deal with these kind of clubs, there's not an owner to be on
Right.
the license, so you have to pick a board member.
Right.
And they've always picked the top board member, which is the exalted ruler.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know why Mr. Bars and
Yeah.
Mr.
well-
Klusman are on there, but
Well, then,
in the
Mr.
past.
Newbie's name should be on the licensee information, if
Yeah,
that's
I mean-
the case, and that's what we need to hold a standard to all our clubs and lodges. If we're gonna do it one way, then let's just do it
and then
that way.
I don't know, Justin Saylor, I'm not really sure what that one's about.
So,
yeah, it's pretty much an incomplete.
Would you like the applicants to be instructed to resubmit their application more completely and clarify who's going to be responsible for the license?
Personally, I would like to see that, and they can give a little more explanation on the one individual, why they feel that he should be on there.
I mean,
well, if that's how we've had the club permits in the past, I think that's just the way we need to do it. If you have an exalted ruler or whoever's in charge of the club at that time, that name needs to be on the permit for
yeah,
future.
I mean, Justin Saylor would be the next exalted ruler. So not till next year, but so I'm not really sure if in this situation, is that why, because of the alcohol-related incidences, are they putting Justin on here? Is that?
I have no idea.
I haven't had conversations with them individually, but perhaps, I don't know, Rita, if you...
They provided a list of several members on there. I guess we don't know how many board members they are, so we did background check on all of them.
They probably put the whole board.
The members that we have on that they brought forward, and those are the ones that have penalties. So we did background check on all the people that they provided.
So that's my question. So is Justin Saylor going to be the lead person then?
They never said who was going to be, they just have a list that is provided. We don't know who, like who's president or vice president, we don't know that.
I think we need to have a policy,
Well, I think we need to have them resubmit it and give us their-
resubmit this, and then,
Who,
and then
what,
our
why, where.
future policy, I think,
Well, they're
what,
supposed to provide that whole list, I guess, for you.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
what involvement do each of these 4 have? I know what 3 of them do, but my concern is the last one.
well, she's the manager.
We have
I think we should have that in writing, exactly what her duties are and so on.
we have always asked for the board members and managers and background checks on all the, like, the or whatever.
So we asked for a background check on every board member, and these are the ones that just came up with something.
And I'm fine with that policy too. I think that we need to have it written in stone whose name is on it. If there's an exalted ruler in a lodge or a club or whatever, that person's name needs to be on that license, because they're responsible for that lodge.
I mean, for me, I'd like to find a way for us to approve this with some clarification maybe at the next meeting, because if we don't approve it, they have to stop serving alcohol for 2 weeks.
I have no problem approving it, but, and if there's a violation up there, we gotta know who we go to.
Well, like I said, in the past, it's always been the exalted ruler. And maybe one of the trustees, which Mr. Klusman would be one of the trustees, but
Well, I think we know what we just need more information. I have no problem approving it tonight.
when is this just a change? This is just a change to add the patio? Well, then let's just table it and have it. I mean, so they have a current license. If we table this, they're not gonna have to stop selling, is what, for 2 weeks. Well, and I understand.
I think they can manage without it till we get clarification.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that, so.
So let's table this license, and then we get some clarification on who's in charge and whose name really should be on the license here. And I do, Rita, you're saying we have the policy that we just check every board member, but I think we need to have it that whoever's in charge of that club needs to have their name on it, and the manager.
Yeah, it's typically always been
Yeah.
the exalted ruler, maybe one trustee and the manager, so, I don't know.
Just so we have somebody that,
I mean, they're just reorganizing here, so maybe that's
Okay.
just slipped through the cracks, I'm not sure, but.
okay. So we have a motion to table the liquor license revision for the Elks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of tabling the liquor license revision, state aye.
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 Those opposed? We will table it till the next meeting. We have some reports, and that will start off with Mrs. Murtha.
Yes. Mr. President, members of the commission, with regards to the first report, the city administrator search update, I was in contact with Mr. Basinger today, who indicated that we are on schedule. He is reviewing and updating and incorporating the comments provided with regards to the brochure. He intends to provide that brochure with you as early as tomorrow, so you can have a look at it. And then the intent is to start advertising and recruiting beginning on Friday of this week.
Did he get multiple or
Edits?
the edits?
Yes.
Okay, good. Any questions for Mrs. Murtha on the city administrator update? Okay, we'll move on to the TIF policy report.
Mr. President, members of the commission, with regards to the TIF policy report, this is sort of a follow-up to the discussion which began at the last city commission, and I believe will continue on to the next city commission. And actually, I will follow up individually with Commissioner Trustin with regards to on this matter, because I think one of the things that was prompting this being brought back was her question with regards to bonds and how do bonds work. Because as the discussion evolved at the last city commission meeting, it was, well, if a TIF district doesn't work, what are our other options related to bonding? With regards to that, you are a home rule city, so you have the authority to bond out as you see fit. All that is required is that you pass an ordinance to issue the bond, substantiate it, indicate how it's going to be repaid. It's my understanding that the last time the city issued a bond, I spoke with Ms. Carlson about this today, was for the West River Community Center. So that was the last type of project that a bond was issued for. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so if that gives you a sense of the type of things the city has historically done for a bond. The benefit of a TIF district is that you're still issuing bonds as a way to pay for the development within the TIF district. It's just that in addition to that, you are also incorporating the repayment method, because the TIF district or incremental financing allows you to freeze the property tax values for the property that is at issue, and then use the difference from the frozen values to the increase, putting that money into a special fund that then is used to pay off the bond. So you are strategically incorporating your repayment method with regards to if you were just to proceed with an ordinance and an issuance of a bond, well, then you must look to different ways for that repayment of the bond. So that is my report back. And with regards to the specific project request that came before the commission, I know that Mr. Kubis had some additional information or had looked into kind of the numbers and can speak to that now, but I also believe it's going to be on the next city commission meeting. So we can continue the discussion now or wait until the 24th.
Mr. Kubis, you want to speak to this now, or do you?
I can, in very general terms. There have been some communications traded with the Radden Group and city staff on their cost estimate, which they presented at the meeting last in June, and they were around $9.2 million. They've whittled that estimate down to just the infrastructure that they need to serve the development that they were proposing to the commission last month. I think, as Ms. Murtha had just reported, there's bonding, there's TIFs, and there's other means that I believe the city should consider when financing a project like this, or considering financing a project like this, and that would be special assessments. Again, something that we've backed away from in recent years because really the economy didn't require those special assessments for the last several years. But prior to that, we did have a program in place, the Development Impact Fee Program, which something like that, or a variation of that program, could be used to support a project like this as well. So lots of options on the table. So I don't have any more specifics than that. I would say we do have a meeting set up with that development team for later next week to discuss their estimates and how their project might move forward. I believe shortly after that, they're going to request to come to another commission meeting.
And do we have, or have you looked at if we would just build the road straight in, Fairway? Have you got costs just for us to complete Fairway to the end of that property line?
I don't right now. I can certainly get those numbers. They had a lot of what they called site improvements,
right,
all lumped together in one category that included the site improvements to the development, what I'll call the shopping mall, and Fairway Street was included in that. So it's kind of difficult to break it out of their numbers, but we can come up with our own estimate of what the Fairway, a straight road Fairway cost would be.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Kubis or Mrs. Murtha on this, on the TIF? Okay, thank you. We have an additional report, the exec budget. Mrs. Carlson?
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. I would like to report that on July 17th and 18th, which is the executive budget workshop, that is going to be held on that Tuesday, Wednesday at City Hall. It's been changed to City Hall. And on the Tuesday, it's 8 to 5, or whenever we finish. And then on Wednesday, it will be like 8:30 to 3:30. Because there'll be another item here at Commission Hall. I just wanted you to know that the dates have not changed, but the place has changed. Okay. And then on my other report of the group photo of the commissioners, that is, we're asking for July 24th, which is the next commission meeting, at 4 o'clock. They would like to come in and take the group photo, if everybody will be here.
The group photo at 4?
You won't be here? We can do it later. I just wanted to bring in this date up,
Do
so.
the next one after that.
Okay,
First one
we can definitely ask about that, on that.
So the next meeting then would be the 7th,
August
correct?
7th.
August 7th?
Yes. Yep. We can look for that date. We'll call the person and see if that would work
Yeah, we'll have to check with
with,
Mrs. Trustum and make sure everybody's schedule, so.
okay? So that was,
I'll have to double check mine too, so.
that'd be the rest of my report.
Okay. Any questions for Mrs. Carlson on the exec budget or the commission photo? All right, thank you. Next item up is public safety. We have a fire department report. And doesn't look like Fire Chief Seevock.
No,
No.
Fire Chief Seevock's on vacation, so you have
All right.
Assistant Chief Barrows.
I think you'll do.
Mr. President, members of the commission, I am here to present the mid-year report. So our dates are from January 1st through the 30th for some of the slides, but the 27th for our incident reports. So what we did is we put together a 3-year trend so you can see and compare how our incidents are trending from January through June 27th. And it's hard to see on this slide. I don't know if you're gonna cut lights. There we go. Thank you. So 2016 is the green, teal. 2017 is orange, and the 2018 numbers are in red. So in 2016, for the same time period, we responded to 195 calls for incidents. 2017, 298. In 2018, we're at 324 as of June 27th. So that gives us an increase of 129 calls since 2016 and 26 from last year. We break those
Ms.
calls.
Burrows?
Yes.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Are these increases due to the fact that we respond now to EMS calls too?
Some of it is, but if you look at the calls this year, we're going to break it down here in a little bit, but we responded to 84 so far. That's still 46 calls up from
Okay.
16 without the medical.
Okay.
Okay? Maybe not. There we go. So we'll break down those incident types then from those numbers. As you can see, fires were 42 calls. Overpressure, explosions, or overheating of an appliance or something of that nature, we responded to 2. And that happened to be washers that were malfunctioning. The belts failed. And then if you look at our rescue EMS, that's 84 up to this point. Then our hazardous conditions where there was a non-fire situation, those are calls like a carbon monoxide detector activation, a gas odor, or a gas leak. That would be your hazardous conditions with no fire. And we had 22 of those. Service calls requiring assistance, we had 21. Those would be calls such as an authorized burning taking place, smoke odor, smoke smell, and we needed to provide assistance to mitigate that situation. And our good intent calls where there is no action required, but we were called out initially, so that would be like a dispatched and then canceled en route. And we had 49 of those thus far. False alarm and alarm calls, as you can see, are our most call outs, 104. But in there's a mixture of what those false alarm calls are. You can have an activation of a detector or a system due to environmental stimuli, like cleaning products will set off smoke alarms in hallways if they've been using some type of a cleaning product, or dust in a construction site, or even heat can set them off. So that's all part of that false alarm, false calls.
What do we charge for a false alarm?
It would be the same as what a burglar alarm is, but we have to have 3 false activations before they get billed. We do allow them to try to correct that situation. Okay. This also would include malfunction of a system. The detectors just fail. They wear out like everything does that's made by man. It does wear out. And or a sprinkler system where a pipe has broken. That would be that type of a call. Okay. And, oh, thanks. Then we break down the response to get to those incidents. So we have alert crew response, we have our shift firefighters responding, we have general alarms. So our alert crew response is 24. That's usually a crew of 5 to 6, including the full-time. As you can see, the full-time numbers is quite high at 294. Keep in mind, though, our night duty shift, which starts at 9:30 at night till 6 in the morning, is included in those numbers, and that's where the volunteer component comes into place, because we do man both stations at night, and the volunteers take part in that. And then we have had 2 general alarm responses, and one of those, of course, is the condo fire, townhouse fire on Sims in February, and an auto extrication call. That will call out our general alarm response. Then we did kind of broke down our apparatus that's responding to those incidents. And sometimes you'll have multiple apparatus going to an incident. So 501 is our first engine out at Station 1. So that's seeing the most wear and tear. That goes to quite a few calls, 272. And then our Rescue 502, which holds our auto extrication equipment and our breathing air for extra air supply, 17 of those. Our aerial ladder 504 went out 9 times. Our other aerial at Station 2 responded 37 times. That's our first call-out truck at Station 2. So part of that night duty shift, that's the truck that responds first from that station. And then 506 is a pumper, our grass fire. It's the smaller pumper that's housed at Station 1, went out 7 times. And then our
Chief Barros,
yes.
the rolling out, the aerial 505 is, what would be an adequate replacement rather than rolling an aerial out every time?
We kind of have that structured right now. We bid out another pumper engine, and that will be coming here at the end of the year, beginning of the year.
Okay.
And that's going to be housed at Station 1, and 501 will now go up to Station 2 for that type of response, and 505 will stay in-house unless needed for a multi-story building.
I was going to say, because rolling a big aerial out for these calls is
Right.
not.
Yeah. And of course, medical will be on that truck too.
Right.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, now to the department training. This is what we've completed thus far up through June. As you can see, we've had some trainings completed that bring certification to our firefighters. We've had 8 firefighters go through EMT training that completed in May of 18. We had 2 firefighters that completed Instructor 1 certification through the North Dakota Firefighters Association. And we've had 5 firefighters complete Firefighter 1 certification. And as you see underneath, we had 2 firefighters from Richardson that participated in that training with our people. So that's why that's there. Currently, we have training in session. We have 4 firefighters going through Firefighter 2 certification and 4 probation firefighters in training, and we'll be bringing in some more. 2 more will be coming on. So we'll have 6 total in the next couple of weeks. Additional trainings that we have sent our people to is the Fire Department Instructor Conference in Indianapolis, Indiana. We had 1 firefighter attend that. Excellent training. We had 2 firefighters participate in Rescue Plus One, which is a rope rescue confined space training that was held at WSI in Bismarck at their new training facility that they have just built. We had 2 firefighters go to TEEX, which is in Texas. That's on an invite from Endeavor Refinery. They have always asked us if we wanted to send people. This is free of charge to us. So it's excellent industrial firefighting training. We have 2 firefighters that have completed CERTC, which is the crude by rail training. That is also grant dollars, and that's in Pueblo, Colorado. And we'll be sending 3 more at the end of before the end of the year is up. We had, this is a air up there. There's 3 firefighters that attended at the instructor conference in Bismarck in January. We had 2 firefighters that attended the North Dakota Building Officials Association conference. They had some code classes on means of egress that they attended. We had 10 firefighters attend the North Dakota Firefighters Association school that's held in Minot annually, and 6 that recently attended the convention where there is also training provided. That was held in Valley City. There was 1 training on here that we did not capture, one of our firefighters attended ICS class held here in Dickinson by the Southwest Health District, 300 and 400 class. That's more of a leadership ICS class. July 28th is an upcoming training that's not on the slide. It was through grant dollars. It's a national class. It's going to be an 8-hour course titled Understanding Basement Fires. And we probably will draw people from the region to attend this class. That will be held at the college at Thompson Room in the Murphy Hall. Some other events I'd like to share with you and the public. We're going to be participating with the Police Department's National Night Out on August 7th. We're also going to be participating in Battle of the Badges, which is a blood drive, Police Against Fire, August 7th through the 9th. And we'll also be participating in the Muscular Dystrophy Association Fill the Boot, which is a national campaign trying to get money for muscular dystrophy research. Okay?
All right, well, thank you for that report.
welcome.
Any questions? Chief Barrows.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We have nothing from the police department tonight. We'll move on to engineering. Mr. Kubis.
Thank you, President Decker. Commissioners, I have a few items tonight. Only one that we're looking for action on, though, and that is the first item for this land sale. We brought this forth at the last meeting. We had a request from a property owner if the city would be interested in selling a piece of ground. There was some misinformation, though. So the parcel, if we could dim the lights again, parcel in blue that's outlined in blue in the bottom, as you can see, maybe a little bit on the sides, it looks like it encompasses that yellow shaded area. It does not. Both the red parcel and the yellow parcel are both city owned, and that was an error that we're correcting on our mapping. So we thought the city only owned about approximately 30 feet, which was that red parcel. Guess I can advance. If we can move to the next slide, it doesn't work from here. So the reason the city owned these two parcels, many of these parcels were city owned on 4th Avenue East. We got them back from the last boom. And then many of them were sold off, and they were sold off in fragments with the apparent intent to line up these two parcels with the right-of-way of 15th Street. I confirmed that with the past city engineer. He said, yeah, that was the intent, to reserve those parcels for the potential of constructing 15th Street through between 3rd Avenue and 4th Avenue East. So there was some apparent intent to reserve those parcels for a street. So we go to the next slide. So the parcel owner in green was the one that was interested in what was the red parcel. But as we've determined, we own both those parcels, the red and the yellow, that equal a buildable 60-foot lot now. So we have a few options that I would present to you for your consideration. That we could sell, or I'll start with number one, we could convert these parcels to right-of-way. Right now they're property, real property that we could sell. We could dedicate those parcels as right-of-way and build a street there. There's no water and sewer in 15th Street right now, so we'd be looking at just a street. Or we could sell both those parcels as a single lot. It would be a buildable lot that would front onto 4th Avenue East. Or we could reserve the parcels as they are now and do nothing with them. Spoke with the street manager, and he says, there haven't been any issues on their end. They don't use it for snow storage right now. Because of the proximity to some private property there. So right now it's green space right now that, assuming the neighborhood mows, we don't get complaints on it, it just is there. So there's a few options out there for your consideration. I really don't have a particular recommendation other than I would say that, since we do have a buildable lot out there that would be easily serviced off of 4th Avenue East, it could potentially be a valuable piece of property.
Any questions for Mr. Kubis?
There's really no reason to build a street, right?
I think we heard, last month at the planning and zoning meeting, well, if we have a street that has nothing fronting it, why are we building a street there was one of the messages that the gentleman presented to us last month. So no, it's been many, many decades that the street has not gone through there. Haven't heard any complaints about not being able to get through. And even if we built 15th Street through for that other block, it obviously would not go through any further east than 4th Avenue East, so.
So if we put this lot for sale, do we have a set price like we always used to, or how do we price this? If we would offer it for sale as one parcel?
I think in the past, with the land sale that we've had across the street, the commission really sets a minimum bid and goes from there, and that could be whatever. I guess the market rate will determine what the property brings. So. But I believe it would have to be, and Ms. Murtha could correct me, but I believe it'd have to be advertised for bid, and we would take the highest bid.
We used to have city-owned property, though, that we would just sell.
I think,
That had a set
I think
price
the
on
market
it.
was
That had a-
totally different.
Yeah, that had a set price on it.
Yeah. I think the market back then was, we were just trying to get rid of land.
I don't know if you'll have any bidders. I'm just saying, if you don't have any bidders, are we just gonna set a price and put it for sale? And if somebody wants it, that's what they have.
There's no
First come,
sewer or,
There's sewer and water on 4th.
On 4th, so I couldn't say if there's a service connection into that property, but the main line is there in 4th Avenue, so
I'm just looking.
But odds are there's no service
Yeah.
line.
more than likely not, as everything was kind of sold in pieces to make these two parcels fit the 15th Street right away.
So it's really an unserviced lot unless you dig into the street, so.
I've always felt the city shouldn't be in the land business. And that's why we got rid of a lot of those lots before, just because we had so many of them. And I'd have no problem with selling these either.
I think, my personal opinion is we leave it as one piece and sell it as a lot, 60 feet wide, and put it up for bids.
Do
And
you know the depth, or it's 60 by what?
I don't offhand.
But it does meet the requirement for.
Certainly, yeah. You can see it would be a little bit smaller. Obviously, the lot beneath it to the south is a lot and a half. This would just be a kind of a minimum size lot. I think they're about 120, 140 feet deep.
So it's a nice sized buildable lot then. I guess that would be my suggestion. We leave it as one parcel and
Right.
try to put it for sale, I think. And
Yep.
I
I think
if we don't have any use for it,
I feel
why
the same way.
keep it?
We just keep it, keep
So-
it as a single parcel and put it up for bids. Find out, come back to us with a report on.
Just for clarification, then, like a no reserve bid where we see what the market dictates, and then the commission would have the right to accept bids or not?
Yes.
Okay, I think we can do that.
Okay.
It might not be the next meeting. We'll go through the advertisement process, which will take 21 days. So
Okay. Sure.
that'd be a month. Thank you.
It's property we just found anyway, so. Like something. So. Okay, you have some additional reports in engineering?
A few reports, yes, President Decker. The first report is on our DOT urban planning grant. And this was a planning grant. It's kind of a obscure funding package that the DOT has. They don't have an application for this. So included in your packet, I believe, was a letter that Mr. Kessel had sent to the DOT late last year requesting these urban planning grant funds. And in some back and forth emails between the DOT's local government department and myself, it sounds like those grant dollars are available. We haven't got absolute confirmation that Dickinson is eligible for those. We are eligible, but haven't been given those funds yet. But our plan was, and this is what we did with those funds the last time we received the planning grant funds, was to do an update to our transportation master plan. That was really what kick-started the comprehensive plan in 2011 that got finished in 2013, were these urban planning grant dollars. a couple thoughts that we haven't necessarily defined the scope with the DOT yet, but that we could focus on the Highway 22 corridor or focus on master planning some areas. We've talked about those areas that might be prime for development, where we could get out in front of a developer and say, this is really how we want the master plans for our streets laid out. Those are things that we could focus on with this planning grant funding from the DOT. If we can go to the next slide. Right now,
Mr. Kubis, if we could, we have a timetable at 5:30.
Oh, sure.
We'll just hold off right there.
Sure.
This is item 2, right? You were moving to? Item 2 on your reports?
It's item 1 under reports.
Oh, okay. But if we could go to the timetable, and first item up on the timetable is concession stand liquor license for the BAC. And who will be handling? I know Mr. Watson's here with city staff, who's,
Mr. President, members of the commission, I'll be happy to comment on the request.
President Decker, Commissioners, thank you. I'm Jason Watson, Director of the Bijou Activity Center for Dickinson State. What we are looking towards doing is for special events like Yule time or weddings that we host there, wedding receptions, or any type of private party. In the past, what we've done is we bring in liquid assets for, the bar or armies. So we bring in a bar to then sell. So what we're proposing is very similar to the liquor license, the concession stand liquor license, which the Big Six have, to try to generate a little bit more revenue for the Bijou Activity Center. This would be where the Heritage Foundation would hold the liquor license for that, for the BAC. And what we're trying to do for that, money-wise, as far as if there is a wedding, instead of bringing in liquid assets to then serve the alcohol, we would then do that. And then what that would entitle would be our sports teams would then be the bartenders. So they would go through we would have a few players from each team would take their serving class license, and then the coaches would kind of oversee the service of that. Myself, I would be at all these events as well, overseeing everything. But that's kind of what we are trying to pursue as a university with the Bijou Activity Center. This would not be we would not sell alcohol for any student activities, such as, a DSU dance or something like that that might be held at the BAC. This would strictly be private parties or fundraisers. Any time that we would have alcohol needed for a certain event. We would continue to have DSU security be at all those events, just like we've done in the past. So that's just kind of something that we are asking for your approval moving forward, if we can look into getting that concession stand liquor license. One thing, a little bit of an addition to that, like with the Big Six one, is just beer and wine, where what I've run into is scheduling weddings and obviously Yule time is the hard alcohol, the liquor part of it. So, and I don't know if there's a way that we can change up the certain license to allow us for weddings to be able to serve, hard alcohol at those. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And like I said, this majority of this money would go towards scholarships for the student athletes at DSU, and also a portion of that would go into the BAC as far as upkeep costs and operational costs. One thing we found out in the past is that's a big building and you have to have a lot of events to cover costs for that, utilities. So this is kind of, we've sat down, Dr. Mitzel, Ty Orton with the Heritage Foundation, and kind of brainstormed on how we could make the experience better for these people who do rent out the BAC, but then also how can we generate a little bit more money going back into the BAC, going back into Dickinson State, going back into scholarships. So are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Watson?
I think that was always the intention of the BAC, to have that available so that they could do some self-funding of the facility. I don't see any one point being bad. The only downfall is some of the people that used to bring in might, they just aren't going to have that business. But I have no problem with it.
I guess,
You'd be granted a full license.
well, I think what they're asking for is a special license, much like the Big Sticks have.
Yeah, this would stay strictly with the BAC.
The
where it
problem you
cannot
got
be-
there is you're going to have a lot more events than what the Big Sticks are going to have.
I think last year we had 10 wedding receptions. We have Yule Time, which is a big fundraiser for the foundation. We have private parties. Christmas parties is a big thing with businesses. So I think as far as how many events that request alcohol, I think over the course of the year, there's probably 25, 30 throughout the year.
Are you
Yeah.
gonna, are you gonna be willing-
Again, I think that's quite a few more events than what the Big Sticks are, which sometimes it involves more visits from the police department,
Mhm.
where we have to recoup our costs also.
Sure.
It can't be the same price that we give the Big Sticks.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, a full liquor license costs $3,000 to everybody else.
20?
No, it's $3,000.
Actually, Mr. President, members of the commission, I do have there's some issues that might be, need to be
Mr.
made aware of with regards to the request, in that any part of the request will require an ordinance change. So adding the BAC will require an ordinance change because the specific concession license was crafted in such a way so that it would not run contrary to the open carry issues, the restaurant issues, the serving issues of having people there with children and adults drinking alcohol. So it was specifically crafted to be for a specific location, beer and wine only, and that's how you were able to get around, or I shouldn't say get around, that's how you were able to respect state law, but still offer this particular type of license. So in order to have it grant a concession license just as it currently is with beer and wine, the ordinance would need to be amended to add BAC, and it would again be driven by the concession contract between, is there a concession contract between the Heritage Foundation or does the Heritage Foundation run its own concessions?
Right now, we have a contract, concession-wise, as far as food goes, we go through the hub, and that is through the Heritage Foundation. As far as, alcohol goes, there's no such contract or anything like that.
So there would need to be a concession contract similar to what Big Six has with Parks and Rec that would outline the ability of providing those concessions and that alcohol availability. In addition, the contract or concession contract holder, I'm assuming if there are private events, that the hub would then be the only one that is allowed to provide food and beverages at the location. So if someone were to have a wedding or something like that, then a private caterer wouldn't be able to use that license because they would not be the concession contract holder.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase that a little bit. We have a contract with the hub for sporting events.
Okay.
Sorry, yes. When we have a wedding come in, the the renting party has the ability to bring in whatever caterer they would like. And that was the same way which it was with the alcohol. They could, if they had a connection with Armies or Liquid, I allowed them to bring in whoever they wanted as long as the proper permits and paperwork was filled out.
So the concession contract holder would, again, that would have to be a detail that would need to be worked out. With the addition or the request of expanding it to include intoxicating liquor in addition to beer and wine, there may be additional state law issues that you would encounter with regards to who would be allowed to be on premises were you to have that and outside the scope of a special event type permit. So it would all of a sudden have the entire area which the BAC can operate year-round, not just in the summer months. You may have to look at what is the amount of food that is also being served and provided, and take that into consideration if you're going to have children on site during the events along with the adults consuming alcohol. So there are some additional legal logistics that would need to be gone through, all involving an ordinance change. So we'd be looking to the commission for your direction on, do you want us, staff, to pursue an ordinance change? And if so, is it simply to add the BAC to a designated, as a designated area under the concession liquor license? Or if you would like it to expand to intoxicating liquor, additional research will need to be done.
Because currently, if one of the bars does the license, they can't sell, with a special use permit, or with our special permit, they can't sell hard liquor, can they?
If there's minors on site, they cannot.
Yeah,
Yep.
Going to have that same issue.
yeah.
I believe it's either if there's children under 18 or if it is under 21. But yes, so that's one thing when people call and ask about reserving for a wedding, first thing I say is there going to be minors there? Because if there are, then no hard alcohol is allowed.
And
to be sold.
that's by state reg.
Yes.
But
Yes, yes.
How do other venues get away with it?
The special event permits, when they're used, I believe what happens is that the area where the intoxicating liquor is served is separated off from the rest of the area where the beer and wine is served.
Okay. I don't know that, I mean, this is my opinion. I don't know that the concession license was put in place for this purpose. I mean, I can see why you guys are asking, but
Yeah, that's why we gotta
Well-
build something different than the
Well-
license.
but I mean.
if we start diving into
But it's
this
gonna be-
alcohol license
I mean,
again.
It would have to be a license that costs similar to what the bars pay then, if they're gonna be able to sell everything. I
Exactly.
mean, it would have to be a $3,000 application fee every year, just like.
That was my point earlier, that
Yeah.
it's more than just a big six
Mrs. Carlson,
baseball
yeah.
game.
I just wanted to make a comment. I know that with those liquor licenses that the bar has, we have certain licenses that we are allowed per population, and they're about 160,000 to start.
Well, that's just to have the,
And we
Yeah.
don't have any openings for that.
right.
We don't have anything for that. And like I said, it's due to population, and our population has gone down. We did get a few, but the population has gone down. We'd have to ask for them to relook at our population to get another license in there.
Well, I
But
think
that's
set
our,
by us, though.
that's set by us, though.
Yep.
Yeah, that, I mean, that's,
So-
basically, we've delved into this the last 2 years about the unlimited liquor license, and we've gone down that multiple times. So what we need to, I think we need staff to look into is what possibly could be the best fit for the BAC, and is there a possibility that it fits under our food and restaurant, or I'm just throwing that out there, or what it may fit under. But I do agree with you, I think it needs to be equal priced to, it can't be what we gave the big
I mean,
cities.
it's basically a full license,
Right. But
other
then-
than off sale, I mean.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's why, you know, it might fall under the food license. food establishment, so,
But they're not selling the food.
yeah.
But, I don't know.
Well, we'll
Well,
have to have city staff look into, and we might have to have that discussion again and go through it, but, I don't think what you have down at the ballpark fits the venue you're in right now.
Sure, yep.
So. Any other questions for Mr. Watson, or comments, or questions for staff? I guess the guidance would be that we need to look at our liquor ordinance and see what may fit. Or we might need to go into it again and craft something, so. But
About every 2 years.
every 2 years. So,
Okay.
okay, thank you. All right. Next timetable event is our public hearing on medical marijuana. And that will be handled by Mrs. Murtha.
President, members of the commission, tonight is the first reading and public hearing of the ordinance related to zoning for the medical marijuana. Just looking in here where the packet is to make sure you have the text in front of you. This is prompted by the referendum now a couple years ago, and the state law that authorized medical marijuana manufacturers and dispensaries to be located in North Dakota. The Department of Health regulations licenses these entities. However, it is up to political subdivisions to provide zoning guidance on where they may be located. This ordinance was crafted for your consideration with regards to the zoning location and special use permits for these types of businesses. The map that was passed out for you, I want to stress, is a draft. But what the map indicates is the yellow circles indicate 1,000-foot setbacks from schools or entities identified as schools and the property on which the schools are located. So that is probably one of the main points of this ordinance, is that by statute, a setback of 1,000 feet from the property or boundary line upon which a school is located is required under state law. You'll notice in the version that is before you, there is a red overstrike under subsection, let's see here, 3A, 3A2B, thank you. Going down there, the overstrikes licensed child care center. In the version that came out of the Planning and Zoning Commission, it was recommended when we crafted, we thought, well, we're trying to define school. Should we also include licensed child care centers or daycares in addition to licensed preschools? Because the definition of school was not met. What we found when this map was created, that if we included daycares within that definition, it effectively eliminated most, if not all, of the property options. And even by removing, for these businesses to be located, and even by removing daycares, you see with the yellow lines, these are just schools and preschools. So preschools, primary schools, and then the DSU properties and NDS university systems property over on the west side of the city. Yeah.
The licensed preschool, is that a requirement by state?
The licensed preschool is not a requirement by the state. It is simply it was simply included in the capture of how you want to interpret the school. The requirements by the state are, and to give you an idea, the licensed preschools, I don't believe, are the ones causing the issue with it.
It was the daycare.
It was the daycare, and in this version, it is in fact the way property is recorded for the university systems, where instead of being platted, all of the property owned by DSU is on one parcel So you'll have this very large stretch of land without a building on it that requires a 1,000-foot setback from that parcel, which is impacting the availability of businesses to go into the commercial districts.
And I would say NDSU property also.
Yes,
There's
yes.
a huge chunk out west there.
As a follow-up to this particular point, I do have scheduled tomorrow a call with the head of the medical marijuana division with the Department of Health, as well as their attorney, to sort of discuss an understanding of how this impacts this particular regulation, how they're interpreting it, impacts Dickinson, and what, if any, options for interpretation that there might be. Because if you were to measure it from the buildings, for instance, there would be less of an impact than from the particular property line from the university. So this is to highlight an issue that we're trying to address and have more discussion on between the first and the second reading. The other points in the ordinance are where they may be located, the manufacturing facility in agricultural, industrial, light industrial, general commercial, the dispensary facilities in light industrial, general commercial, downtown commercial. Those are indicated. There are some additional requirements with regards to making sure that the businesses are regulating their waste, are regulating the odors, or having proper air filtration systems in place when they open their doors, given what they're selling. Also, another item was that we're looking for input on from the commission is the dispensary operations. If you have any preferences with regards to time. Currently, it indicates in this draft of the ordinance that the hours of operation of dispensaries shall cease between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. I believe this may have been discussed by the county as well, and so if you would like to discuss or modify those hours, we can incorporate those changes between the first and second reading. An additional item that was included in your packets was indicating that, if I scroll up, oh no, it isn't, that initially it was our understanding from the Department of Health that they were going to issue an RFP for dispensary license applicants, for all dispensary license applicants during a set time frame this summer. However, since that time, they have indicated that they're going to focus on dispensary license applicants and the RFP for that on the east side of the state, and have provided a schedule for when the process is going to begin for the west side of the state. And it's my understanding that the Dickinson area is impacted and that it's going to be delayed, I think, until January.
It is 2019 what I read.
2019.
It would be delayed. We wouldn't even be able to open a place till 2019. Or apply.
Apply, yes. So they
Apply
won't,
till 2019.
they won't be issuing that till, so there, I will say that there is some time, whereas before there was a sense of urgency to have the zoning regulations in place in time for the RFP. Now there is additional time due to that delay for this area. So I would be happy to answer any questions you may have of me with regards to this first draft, and otherwise I leave it to your discussion and direction.
The only comment I'll have is, and we brought this up on county planning and zoning, is the time period. I really don't think 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. as operating hours is something that we should be dictating. Not that we can't close, have a close down period, but I think it should be closer to midnight rather than 9 p.m. And then, if the 7 a.m. is when they want to open, kind of leave it like to their, be at 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning. But I don't think they're going to be getting a whole lot of business at that time period. 7 a.m. So, and I know we're discussing this, but we're, like Mrs. Murtha said, we're not under any time constraint now because we're not even going to be able to apply out here until January, and all of this might be decided in November otherwise with the other ballot measure. So. Do you have anything, commissioners, on the time or?
Time thing, I would agree with you. I don't know why we need to limit it to 9 PM. I mean, if they want to be open till midnight, I don't know why that really matters.
I don't think I think we control when bars shut down, so I think we should have them shut down at a certain period of time. But
Do you make it bar time then?
yeah, make it.
I mean, bar time is what, 8 AM to 1 AM?
I guess that would.
Except on Sundays.
Yeah.
Pretty sure
We
it's
could
8 AM to 1 AM.
reflect bar time. But this is, like I said, this is medical marijuana. I don't think the people are going to be hanging around at 1 o'clock in the morning buying medical marijuana. So, there is in. Let me look here. 3B 2, there's another mention of licensed child care center that needs to be struck. So, just so we're consistent.
With regards to your, the earlier comment, however, do you want us to strike all of B and include licensed preschool in the strike? And then we would update the map, but.
So we'd strike preschool also, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's just a question. Do you?
It's not a state, preschools are not count, I mean.
The Department of Health is not requiring preschools.
I think we should reflect
State law.
State law.
I'd say we strike it then.
That way we don't, we're consistent.
But universities are considered a school?
By the Department of Health, yes.
Be consistent with state law, and then that way we don't set ourselves up for any kind of lawsuit. So, and then with the, I think the hours of operation, we should just set them up to reflect what our ordinance is for the bars. So, that's my personal opinion.
I would agree.
Like I said, I know we need to get this out of the way and get it set up for medical marijuana, but I think we're going to have other issues after November because they turned in their petitions. They have enough signatures for recreational. So we might be dealing with that sooner than we think.
Or sooner than the applications.
Probably sooner than medical marijuana. So, anything else, commissioners?
No.
Not, this is a public hearing. And we'll open up the public hearing if there's anyone from the public that wishes to come forward and have any concerns or opinions on, this would be ordinance 1657. Ordinance 1657. Please come to the mic and state your concerns. Any concerns from the public on 1657? Not, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any more questions, concerns for staff? Not, I'd look for a motion on 1657.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve in a second. Any further questions, comments? Go ahead and vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Wallop?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. First reading of ordinance 1657 is passed. All right, we will go back to Mr. Kubis. You have you're going to continue with the urban planning grant update.
Yes, I was just wondering if we wanted to, I don't think we made a motion to put that property up for sale. Ms. Murtha, if that would be appropriate, like backtrack.
No, it would be appropriate if that was the intent. I wasn't sure, based upon the way the discussion ended, if you were going to proceed between now and the next meeting, or if you were going to bring back what the proposal looked like at the next meeting.
I think we'd like to see a proposal to what, you know, what our options are to sell it as a parcel, or, and what the price might be.
Okay, yeah, then I think we have direction. We'll
Okay.
bring it back at the next meeting. So moving on to the reports, item B1 is the urban planning grant. Again, that grant was requested in the amount of $250,000. Typical of DOT projects would be a 80-20 match, which would require a $62,500 local match. Going through the DOT's procurement process to get a consultant on board to do this, we wouldn't expect any expenditures before 2019. So we mentioned this at the last budget meeting we had. We'll mention it again. That we do think that this is a very likely possibility that this grant will be awarded to Dickinson, but that we'd have to budget for the $62,500.
And Mr. Kubis, you wanted to just refresh my memory. You wanted to do just an update of a couple of like Highway 22 and.
Well, in general, I think it would be an update to our transportation master plan. We don't refer to that a lot in these meetings. We talk about our comp plan, but when engineering staff is doing reviews of, say, a development proposal, we refer back to that transportation master plan. Often it sets our guidelines. It's been adopted by ordinance just like the comp plan. So we refer back to that often for guidance on right-of-way widths that we should take. What I would see as a necessary update would be our future road network. We really kind of gridded out the study area during the comprehensive or the transportation master plan back in 2012, 2013. I think some refinement of that is in order. Now, we built some of those streets out. We built Westridge Drive. We built 15th Street. How do we see those streets extending out or not extending out? Before, it was really a preliminary grid that we laid out in the ETZ and beyond. So master planning some of those areas, but even diving further into master planning areas like the property north of the interstate we've talked about, where the Dickinson Public Schools has bought some land. The city owns some land out there, areas like that. And then the Highway 22 corridor, it's just been talked about off and on for probably several decades about what might be done there. It's kind of been on the back burner now. Traffic's lightened up a bit in the past few years, but in 2013, it was a real problem getting through Highway 22 from one end of town to the other. So we haven't set that scope in stone yet with the DOT. We certainly have the opportunity to have more meetings to really drill down and see what we'd want to accomplish out of that planning grant. And again, that this was kind of the I'll call it the seed money that really kick-started the comprehensive plan in 2013, and maybe it could do the same thing here. We've talked about an update to the comprehensive plan too in the last month or so.
And when was the last update to the road?
They were both done roughly in the same time frame. I think the transportation plan was finished slightly ahead of the comprehensive plan, but late 2012, early 2013 is when they were finished. So it's been about 5 years. Any questions on that? We can move on to the NDDOT Urban Grant. So they have two programs with very similar names, but completely different in the scope of what they're trying to accomplish. The Urban Grant program, again, is the DOT's portion of the governor's Main Street initiative. And back in February, we had applied for a grant to replace our lighting system along Villard. And so it would extend all the way from State Avenue to 10th Avenue East. And as we got more towards the core area of the downtown, to put some more of the decorative lighting like we have installed along Sim Street in the last couple of years. Sounds like that selection committee has met. I was hoping to have a better update today, but I just received an email yesterday And it states, this from the DOT, the Urban Grant Program Selection Committee met on the 25th of June. The committee's recommendations went to the DOT director for final approval, which was given on July 3rd. Award letters are being prepared and should go out this week. And we can't share any additional information until the award letters are out. So my update was maybe a little premature, but hopefully by the next meeting, we'll know where we stand with that grant application for the lights. It was, as you can see on the slide, it was a $2.5 million project roughly with a grant request of $2 million. So we have a blank was received yet, but hopefully in a couple weeks, we'll know what that blank might be. Any questions on that grant update? Not a lot of information.
Any questions,
there,
Commissioner?
No.
Next meeting, we'll should know where we're at there. This report is on an item called contributed capital, and this came out of our, you might have to tell me, 16 audit that our auditors have been in City Hall getting facts and figures, and one of the items that came up was there has been a lot of contributed capital, and in my layperson definition of that is really infrastructure that's now owned and maintained by the city, but was funded by others. So we had no financial investment in this, and most of the developments in recent history in Dickinson were 100% contributed capital. So Westridge and Cook's Fifth, the city didn't put money into that water, sewer, streets. It was contributed capital by others. And so the details are really laid out in that contributed capital memo that was put together for the auditor. They have a few more questions, but I believe they're fairly close to accepting that number. And really what it does, it puts on the books for the city approximately $57 million worth of assets that the city owns now that we weren't showing as an asset to the city. So I think in all, I can't say whether that changes our bond rating at all, but I think all in all, it's a good thing. So that'll help hopefully close the loop on some of the audit questions they might have had for 2016. Are there any questions on the contributed capital? Right.
Any questions?
No.
Move on to the last report. We brought this forward at a previous meeting, was the land transfer along Museum Drive. Again, we had some city-owned property, not right-of-way, that was different than the property we talked about earlier, is unbuildable. It's a 50-foot wide, long strip of land that runs the whole length of this block from Sims Street to from Sims to 4th Avenue East. And right now in the map you can see on the slide, those are the residents or the property owners that we've heard back from that were in favor of the project. So we've had 7 positive responses, 5 no replies, and 1 response that's requesting the city to move some trees and debris from that property before they'd like to accept it. And there's a photo that was sent from that property owner. The property line is roughly that power line or the back of that shed. And so this, kind of some rough looking shrubs and a pile of mulch that was from a tree that was recently removed by the city is still there. And, I think there's certainly the ability for the city to take care of that now, just looking for some direction on this. I think it's moving in a positive direction. We'll probably reach out to these folks again that we haven't heard from. Might not have been on the priority list for them, but all in all, we've heard positive comments from the 7, and positive to the extent where they say, we're going to our neighbors and asking them to get on board with this. So right now, I think it's moving along. It's maybe going to take another month or so to get everyone's acceptance of the idea, and then if we're still thinking this is the direction to go, if we have 13 positive responses, I think the direction given last time was to move forward with a plat and showing these parcels added on to the existing homeowner's land.
Mr. Kubas, I'm counting 7 whites, and you said there's 5 non-replies.
So lot 1 on the very left-hand side of the west side of the map
Okay,
is not, they're not in the picture because there's really no land to get back there.
So the one with the trees is basically, there'll be a blue if we remove the trees.
I'd like to think so. We've talked to her several times.
Okay.
She's pretty adamant about the trees, but I think she's in lot 7 or 8 there.
Okay. Well, I think if we took the tree down, we should have gotten rid of the mulch and the tree right away, but,
Well, you know, we have a staff on board now
Yep.
to do those kind of things, and of course, you can imagine without having a forester for a couple of years, his list is, his list is long, so.
I do think it's moving positive, it looks positive though, so.
Yeah. So, we'll report back. I think
Okay.
we'll follow up with the folks that we haven't heard from and keep following up with the folks that we have heard from that have some issues they want resolved before they would kind of get on board with the program.
We're basically just gonna transfer it over to them at no cost, right?
That's the thought right now is
Yeah.
we'd replat it. There may be, needs to be some monetary transaction to make it a legal
$1 or
transaction, but
something.
yeah, because right now the city's trying to maintain this, the property lines, the occupation lines really jog around out there. The property line is straight, but occupation lines over the years have
Migrated?
gotten really, yeah, they've migrated north, and not in all cases, but in some of them. So I think it's going to be a worthwhile thing, especially for some of those property owners whose fences have migrated.
Okay, well, thank you for that report. Any questions for Mr. Kubis on any of the reports? All right, thank you, Mr. Kubis. Next up, we have Public Works, Demcom Industries, and Mr. Prouse will be presenting.
Good evening, Mr. President and Commissioners. First up, I have the Demcon contract. Demcon is a MRF, material recovery facility, that we are going to be hauling our recyclables to once we start our recycling program, which is slated for October 1st. The contract with Demcom is looking at a 3-year initial term, automatic renewal each year for 3 years, and it'll be starting October 1st, 2018. The cost behind the contract for disposal of the materials is $64 per ton. Those materials are basically all forms of recyclables, so commingled paper, cardboard, plastics 1 through 7, steel cans, aluminum cans. The only exception will be food contaminated materials, glass, and styrofoam. They will not take those 3 items. With that being said, we got the rate for the disposal down to $64 a ton. After they go through the materials and sort it, they will apply credits back to the city of Dickinson based on the current commodity rates. So, in the end, it could be a zero transfer for the materials. The only expense we'd have is hauling them to the material recovery facility. City Attorney Murtha, Solid Waste staff, and the Demcon president have reviewed the terms of the contract, and we recommend approval.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Prouse? Now I'd look for a motion on this contract.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
We have a motion to approve the contract.
Second?
And we have a second. Any further questions or comments? Not, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Walla? Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Second item I have is the recycling partnership grant. I brought it up at the last city commission meeting. We did get approval for the grant. They are going to honor it to us. They are giving us $7 per recycling cart, as we did include the RFID technology in all of our carts. An additional $1 per household for any educational materials. The limits on the grant are up to 7,700 households, and it will come to a grand total of $61,600. They also are offering $150,000 in in-kind services to help out with the design of different brochures, advertisements, marketing paperwork, and such. And again, staff recommends a motion to approve the grant.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Prowse on the grant? Not, I look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve accepting the grant with a second. Any further questions or comments from Mr. Prowse? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Grant agreement is approved.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be moving on to, we have a report from Public Works in the stormwater compliance.
Good evening, President Decker and City Commissioners. My name is Adam Ballesteros. I'm the Water Utilities Manager for the City of Dickinson. Also just wanted to make that, it was actually changed to 6C here at 7 a.m. on my report. The last time we were in front of you on Tuesday, June 19th, you had asked us to prepare a report with clarification for the events related to Dickinson Hills non-compliance issues. We prepared a report that was included in your packet, and the report goes over the introduction, history, definitions, ordinances, fee schedule, timeline, and locations of non-compliance. In addition, we also included enforcement notices that were sent to Mr. Radden by certified mail, as well as appendix that would contain North Dakota Department of Health stormwater inspection reports for the Dickinson Hills development site for the years of 2016, 2017, and 2018. Also have with me Mr. Dwayne Zastapel, Chief Stormwater Operator. So he'll be going through the slides with you just now. Thank you, Dwayne.
Good evening, President Decker, City Commission. My name is Dwayne Zastapel. I am the Chief Stormwater Utility Operator for the City of Dickinson. Tonight I will go over the timeline of the events that happened over the course of the inspection with Dickinson Hills. This is an area view of the location of Mr. Radden's 2 non-compliance issues. For your reference, the Dickinson Hills site location is located west of the business loop, just west of the new hospital. We have labeled 3 locations at location A, B, and that's, whoops, wrong button. Right over here, A and B, that was the first instance for our non-compliance. And then location C, which is right over here, that is our second instance. So those are the 2 that I based it off of. The sediment that is leaving from this site is ultimately making its way down the entire, enters our ponds and entering into the Dickinson dike. So basically all the water that's running off from this site right here is coming down and it's running right along the pond here. And then we also have some ponds running around the ditch here, and then we have some ponds that are just to the south of there. And then those, all the sediment that's coming from there is going into those ponds and then into the dike. So that's where some of this control is for. City staff has been in contact with Mr. Radden. Radden from July of 2016 about stormwater non-compliance issues at the Dickinson Hills development. The Water Utilities Department staff has provided reports to Commission and City staff regarding the stormwater non-compliance issues. The top photo, I wanted to point out the washouts along the culverts. You can see them here, right along the edge here, and then along the edge here. These steep slopes are not meant for permanent vegetation. These steep slopes can cause more issues in the future if the site is not well maintained. The bottom left photo, this is the photo of me and Mr. Dwayne Schwab outside, on site in 2016. He was there on behalf of Mr. Radden. This was during the 2016 inspection with the State Health. Mr. Radden was on the phone with us saying that he would have Midwest Erosion Control taking care of the issues. The bottom right photo, we having issues on both sides of the approach from the culvert, and we are showing more washouts and slope failure. And that's over here, some more washouts here and slope failure from the sides. Issues have been ongoing since 2016, but fines only started in late 2017 when Mr. Radden became unresponsive to our communication. City fee schedules dictated fines of $250 per day per instance. There were 2 instances on site, which I located prior map. The state health has worked with the city to come to a resolution on this project. However, the state health requirements could place our MS4 permit at risk if we did not take action with this development. In the spring of 2017, when nothing was completed, this is when I took further action on this here. This was from our, these photos were from our inspection in 2017. Because of the non-compliance issues, we were not taken care of in a timely manner, and communication with Mr. Radden had stopped. I performed a reinspection of the property and sent a letter of non-compliance and a reinspection report to Mr. Radden by certified mail. These are the photos that we took in 2017 non-compliance. Top left photo, in this photo looking to the south, showing washouts on the side, and washouts looking worse in 2016. So you can see now that this whole area right here is all starting to wash out, and these are the culverts coming from our approach. And then you can also see in the bottom photo here, the washouts just coming through. This is still in 2017. On the top left photo, this is the location of the issue number 2. This is like the second instance. This is the large washouts leading from the drainage ditch. And then you can see right here, this is all washing out from his property and is coming right in, and it comes right alongside the pond, and all the silt and sediment comes into our drainage easement or drainage ditch and then right through our ponds to the dike. The bottom right photo, we are facing south here. Oops. This here one right here. Where you can just show it's just a little bit farther back, showing all the rills and from the sediment. City gave Mr. Radden ample opportunity to obtain compliance on this site. Mr. Radden was sent 3 enforcement notices before he once again became receptive to the city staff request. State desires to remediate the site is what prompted vigorous city action. Mr. Radden compliance was only achieved through our city fines, I believe.
So, we had produced the report that's included in your packet, and it's maybe a little too comprehensive. We just wanted to include all the photos on there, and Mrs. Trustham had asked us that we produce that with the timeline on there. So, if you have any questions on it, I understand it's lengthy, but we've been dealing with this issue for a long time, and just wanted to bring this to your attention on the work that we've been doing with it. So,
I think it's, well, you know, it's information that we needed. And you did a good job compiling it, so thank you very much.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Providing us with that information. So, any questions for Mr. Ballesteros or Mr. Zaspel? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, we will move on to buildings and code enforcement. We have Board of Appeals consideration and building official Schwint and Attorney Murtha will be handling this.
Mr. President, members of the commission, I will provide just a very brief procedural background. Building official Schwint will be providing the factual background and how it came before you. Just as a point of clarification on that process, I, by acting as legal counsel to the Building Board of Appeals and the City Commission in these instances, not giving you advice, but being here for your questions, I can't offer recommendations, nor can I advocate on behalf of staff. So staff will make their recommendation, but I sit passively here and available to you to answer any questions you might have. Brief background on this. This is an appeal resulting from the mowing of grass and the charges assessed for that, for the mowing by the city that occurred last summer. There were three particular property owners who, after the assessments had gone on to the property tax roll and they got their statement in January, contacted the city to object. Under your code provisions, on the city code adopts the Uniform Building Code. Under those, technically, after you only have about 20 days to appeal any violation. However, the nature of the violation, the nature of the concern being expressed by the property owners was notice, that they did not receive notice of it. Given that notice was the issue, it was decided internally among staff that holding them to the 20 days to object may be a little bit unfair. So they needed a venue to be able to bring their concerns, to have their concerns addressed. It turns out in the Uniform Building Code, there is in fact a Board of Appeals that can hear these concerns, which had not been convened in the city for approximately 10 years. The Board of Adjustment members agreed to act as Board of Appeals members for this purpose. They heard, all 3 property owners were noticed, only 2 showed up. Of the 2 that showed up, on one of them, the board was indicating that they would like to offer or recommend to you some sort of relief in the form of a adjustment to the property tax roll because the $500 was put on their property taxes. And I believe the recommendation came out of the Board of Appeals that for this particular owner, that should be reduced by $250 via an abatement. So that is a recommendation before you. Should you choose to confirm that recommendation, we would need to proceed with abating it. Should you choose to deny that recommendation, the property owners would then have the ability to appeal your determination to district court. So with that procedural history, I turn it over to Mr. Schwint to discuss the factual background of this case.
Thank you, Attorney Mirtha. President Decker, Commissioner. As stated, we did send out letters. The property owners contend that they did not receive notice. What we do is use the addresses that are in our system at City Hall. It does appear that the property owner of the Lot 13, Block 14, Houston 2nd did move, and our system was not updated to that. However, we did use the address that was in our system. What happens is we have our code enforcement personnel that go out in the summertime. A lot of times it's complaint driven, these issues. Our staff goes out, takes a photo of the property, sends out a notice to the property on record. And again, this was an empty lot. The owners of this property used to live right next to it. This is a property that hasn't been an issue in the past. They lived right there and maintained the property. What you have above you, this was a property that the neighbors were complaining about. We did send it to their previous address, so that is true. We did, according to the building code and the International Property Maintenance Code, the process that we use, we did our due diligence. We sent out letters, first-class mail, and did not receive any of that mail back. And after a property does get mowed, the billing does go to RETA. And again, RETA sent out notices, and those notices did not come back as far as a bill. We received a notice that they didn't receive any notice until they got their tax bill. Based on the information there, I believe our staff did our due diligence, and city staff recommendation is not to approve the Board of Appeals decision to grant relief.
So we don't have a formal Board of Appeals.
We are the Board of Appeals.
Yeah. Under the Uniform Building Code, you have the, I'm sorry, Commissioner Steiner, under the, that's where the authority for
International Property Maintenance Code.
International Property Maintenance Code had it within its structure, which you adopted. There is a Board of Building Appeals that.
Board of Building Appeals.
Yes.
Okay. So we don't have a formal Board of Building Appeals.
Other than that, which is under that code. No.
Okay. So the board that saw this was the which board with Mr. Bars on it?
Actually, it's the same members that the Board of Adjustment. It is a separate board, but it's the same members.
Okay.
Okay, my question, when the Board of Adjustment makes a decision, we don't hear an appeal on that. Why? Why are we hearing this right now?
So process-wise, this is what was rather cumbersome about it. So under the process code of the International Building Code, it goes to a Building Board of Appeals. The city didn't have one, but you adopted a code which said that you should. So because there was a violation, it needed the process that you adopted via that International Building Code. We had to convene a Board of Appeals. It went before the Board of Adjustment and said, would you be willing to be, and there's also certain expertise requirements of the members of a Board of Building Appeals. The Board of Adjustment members had those expertise. So at the direction of, and with the approval of the city administrator at the time, we went before the Board of Adjustment and asked them if they would be willing to serve as Board of Appeals members. They indicated that they would, so that we could have a venue for this to come. But the Board of Appeals under the International Building Code does not have the authority to grant a tax abatement. You do. So that $250 cannot be granted. We can't process it just based on the Bill of Boarding Appeals. It had to come before the City Commission because only you have that power,
So this is governed by the International Building Code?
which the city adopted via the city code.
So where's the Board of Adjustment under? That's just under our ordinance? then,
That's
or
just
what?
under our ordinance.
So this comes to us because it was placed on their tax rolls.
Yes.
Mr. Schwinn, you sent the letter to the correct address that we have.
Correct.
I mean, they moved. It's their responsibility to change the mailing address of that property.
Correct. The owners of the property did contact utility billing, but utility billing is on a separate system than our assessing page. So what we've done since then is that our staff now has access to the most current information that we can get. We just had another circumstance where a property owner was given the letter of some property that just was sold 4 months ago. The previous owner just gave that to the new owner. So the transfer of property doesn't happen that fast. So we used what's in our system.
So that was just on the Steyer property, that they claimed they didn't get the mail.
Actually, it was one of the Lance property also.
Oh, he's claiming he didn't get the mail also?
Correct.
Okay.
How many of these do you have a year?
As far as
Where
disputing
we have to
or
send out notices, mail out notices?
it's hundreds of notices that we send.
Would it be worth it to send it out certified with return receipt requested?
We actually found out that in the past, we used to send it out certified, but in some instances, we'll actually get the return a year after we sent it out, so there's of no benefit to us. And if we get it back
But it would
as-
eliminate a lot of them saying they don't get it.
Well, from what we've done now is we post the site. We actually tag a door if it's a structure on the property, and we're taking photos of those steps. So we've gone beyond and added some steps so that we won't have this issue.
I see the vacant lot that, I mean, I don't think a person should need notification that it needs mowing when it got to where, that point right there. Even though that we do send them, I mean, if I was a neighbor, I wouldn't be happy with that either.
Well, ultimately, we have to make the decision because it's on the tax roll. So we either approve we have a motion to go with the appeal, what the appeal board approved, or we deny what the appeal board approved and we...
I move we deny the appeal board recommended.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the appeal board.
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion or comments?
My only comment on this is, if we're gonna be the final deciding factor, let's just eliminate all these other boards and have them come to us right away. I mean,
Ultimately, they should.
I mean, it's just a process that, a process after a process after a process. I mean, if we're gonna have a board that makes a recommendation and we don't go with it, then why even have a board?
They always have the right to move it up to the next level. And I know we got the Board of Adjustment.
But I mean,
we got
in
the
this
appeal board.
case, they're not really
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, they weren't authorized to do this from the get-go because it went on the tax roll. So, am I incorrect in that?
I mean, I could see if this landowner was here appealing to us,
Right.
that decision, but we're actually, the city's here appealing the decision of the board that we appointed. It doesn't even make any sense, so.
I think this whole matter comes down to it's on the tax rolls now, so that's why we have to decide. So we have a motion to deny with a second. Any further discussion or comments? Not, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Wallop?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Appeal is denied. Okay, we've taken care of the timetable. Next item up is public issues of city concern not on the agenda. If you have a public issue that was not on our agenda this evening, please come forward, state your name, and let the commission know of your concern. Anyone with a concern not on the agenda, please come forward. Not, I'll close the public issues of city concern not on the agenda, and we will move into executive session.
After a brief time.
We're back into the public session and obviously instructions with regards to how to proceed on this matter. At this time, I would ask the citizen to go back into executive session for attorney consultation on the 4404 and 1971, 2 and 4404 and 222 to discuss the right construction.
Okay, we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move to executive session for attorney consultation pursuant to 44-04-19.1, paragraph 2, and 44-04-19.2. We'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Frederick? Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We move into executive session. Thumbs up.
Good, all right. We're out of executive session now, and we've received instruction on how to proceed on the Vite matter, and now asking for the additional matter of a motion to go into executive session for attorney consultation pursuant to the statutory authority noted on the agenda with regards to an update on the Koenig case.
Okay, I would seek a motion under executive session for attorney consultation pursuant to 44-04-19.1, paragraph 2, and 44-04-19.2 to enter executive session on the Koenig case.
I'd make that motion.
A motion and with second. We'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner? Aye. Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We'll move into executive session.
Are we back? Good. We're back in the open session. The update has been provided, and I have nothing further for the commission.
Okay, I think that is it. We're at the end. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We adjourn.